Hello, everybody. Back to another Dane and Derek episode.
Yep.
Probably the last one of the year.
Yep. We reached the end of the season.
For those wondering, we've done 6 episodes this season.
It's been a special year.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, first off, how are you, my friend? How are you doing, Dane?
we were just talking off mic a second ago where I was kind of explaining that I'm good today, but I'm experiencing a whiplash effect, kind of like a highs and lows, a little manic after being done with finals in the semester and everything. Because as I was I think I've mentioned to you more than once, I basically was working what would amount to three part-time jobs this semester, basically.
Oh, jeez.
What would it be equating to? Because class is about a part-time job, in terms of what it takes time-wise, commitment, all of that. And then I was working an actual part-time job, which was actually my lowest energy commitment in all reality. It was a great, honestly, it's been a gift from my boss and my coworkers for them to give me a little bit of work, a little paycheck that I haven't had. I haven't had a paycheck for even a small one for this long. I started work this job in May. This is the longest I've gotten to have a job since I started law school. So even that's been I think if I didn't have that, I would have lost my mind. It would have been horrible this semester, financially speaking. Um, and then I was doing clinic, which is the biggest time commitment I've done. Even off break, I've been putting in a couple hours a day, even though it's technically a class. Yesterday, I spent 2.5 hours
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff. Um, and so the balancing act of all of that was really really rough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I now I'm in this position where a lot of the weight has come off, and so I'm experiencing a lot of the tension getting released, both in a positive way and in a negative way. This morning, I've
Mm-hmm.
woken up and um, there's a feeling of the sky is blue. It's lovely out. It's a little crisp, but it's not super cold. And there's snow on the mountains. It's love. Everything's wonderful. There's that feeling.
Yeah.
Um, and simultaneously, yesterday, I was kind of moody and grumpy about how things have sort of worked out and where I'm at. Because it's a pretty frustrating um set of situations I feel I'm in
Mm.
the long haul. And so I'm trying to balance it all out. So I'm trying to ride that because it's better than the constant tension that I was
Yeah.
under even 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that. How are you doing? You sound tired. um
Yeah, I'm very tired. It's been a very raggedy end of the year, I guess.
mhm mhm
Work's been busy, just a lot of stuff happening at work, a lot of stuff happening to just get done outside of work, a lot of errands being put off. On top of that, my asthma has just not been cooperative this winter.
hmm
Um like
Has
I've
it been
noted, yeah.
smoggy in LA?
No, I think it's just I'm at the age now where if I have a cold beverage too late at night, I'll just start coughing. You know,
A cold beverage?
if yeah, if I have the wrong kinds of foods and beverages too late or too early in the day, my body will just not like it.
Whoa. And that's
So,
asthma?
I think so cuz it's all kind of related. If my core temperature gets really cold, my
Sure.
body's going to get
Yeah,
shocked,
yeah.
my lungs will get shocked, all that.
Gotcha.
If I eat too many acidic foods, that'll result in more coughing. So I've had to be very careful watching things like cheese or
Hmm.
beer or coffee even.
Stuff
I've
that's kind of starchy or
yeah.
phlegm inducing. You're basically
Yeah.
listing all the things that before when I was doing choral music way more. Like they would be like, don't, not before a show, like don't,
Yeah.
or before rehearsal. Like this is an after rehearsal thing you should do.
Yeah. So
You know.
that's yeah. So it's just been a lot of like managing that, and then also just like trying to get 8 hours of sleep a day in order to
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
properly rest. I think that I have not been doing very good at.
Mm.
Um and I've been also like in a simultaneous battle of like trying to get my physical activity in despite how much colder the weather is and despite how I'm feeling that day. And
Yeah.
so it's been like, I don't know, I think I'm probably in a position of doing a little too much, um a little too much too frequently. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to find, I mean, I think after this week, because next week is Christmas,
Yep.
I will finally get some rest. But kind of looking forward to having like 2 to 3 days of nothing to do.
Yeah. That would be lovely.
Yeah.
I'm in a position where like I don't really think I'm gonna get many like empty days.
Mm.
Um, because I've put off a lot of stuff, right? Like I haven't had enough time with my family. I haven't had enough time with my friends. I like definitely haven't had the time I usually like to have with Gracie, even though like she's probably the person I've spent the most time with. It's still like, like I don't feel like I've been as emotionally present as I want to be,
Yeah. And
Um, it's tough. It's tough.
yeah, and also like just like domestic time is different from like date time or
It
like,
super is.
you
It
know, like
so is.
it doesn't feel the same, at least. Like
Mm-mm.
I think
No.
that's also a struggle because you can get trapped in the cycle of, oh, but we spend
But
a
I
lot of
saw you
domestic time
today,
together. Yeah, we're having
Yeah.
every meal together, but then you know not but then that leads to like not doing the things you want to do with them. So
Mm-hmm. No, you're totally right. You're totally right. Um, so before we like just sort of catch up for a minute, um, what the fuck happened? Like what? we should we
so
should answer that
yeah, we
question.
should answer this
Um,
for the listeners.
yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Looking at the episodes list, we've done 6 episodes, including this one.
Yep.
And don't worry, listeners, we have a bonus episode coming on Christmas.
Oh, we do. We do.
Yeah. But we technically recorded it last Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's very late. But let's see. We put out 2 episodes in February.
Mm.
But I think the second one in February was like a week late, but you can like backlog publish.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our Leap Day episode. So yeah, we did a lot of special episodes this year. We did Leap Day and Boy and the Heron, and then we did 2 episodes that were going to be our like monthly episodes, which was August and September.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're here in December. So we did February, April, August, September, and then now December. Speaking at least for me,
Yeah.
right in the middle of February through like May, I was directing magic and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that process ended up going through the summer. And I was working on the edits with the editors and doing my full-time job. So it was like having 2 jobs.
Yep.
So that kicked my ass. And I'm still working on that documentary, and that kicked my ass.
Mm-hmm.
And then, come, I guess, August and September, I guess that's when we returned to office at work. And so my my like at home time and like ease of getting around LA time
Mm-hmm.
shifted. But then also, I think there was just a lot of like up and down, like working on the health and working on other projects and then getting caught up in work and sort of just the minutia of the everyday. So I
Mm-hmm.
think there were just a lot of things. It was a year full of errands. After that, that's kind of how it feels to me.
Yeah.
What about you? Because you've had 2 semesters and a summer in this whole year.
Yeah, yeah. So, the first semester of the year, which is to say the second semester of my 2L year, the school year calendar, it's fucked. It's fucked. It's dumb. Anyways, um, it was not as bad as this past semester in terms of like actual difficulty. Um, but you know what it was is that I was not doing so hot emotionally. I I got like knocked down by a few things, and then I didn't start coming out of it until May. Um
Yeah.
so I was really struggling. And then the job over the summer, well a really good job, um the one I still have, it was time consuming. The the commute was long.
Oh
Um
yeah.
and so like I was working 8 hours and then commuting 2 hours overall. So like it was about a 10-hour commitment. And then we moved in the middle of it of summer. We moved kind of last minute into an apartment that was kind of a lemon. Um, and it constantly was needing repairs and there were
Mm.
problems and it was just impossible to get settled for months. Um, and then the semester started and I was pretty hopeful about this semester starting out. And then I just got hit by some problems. Like in clinic, the person I was working with was not what I would describe as an ideal match.
Mm.
Through a lot of hard work and communication, it's gotten better. It's gotten loads better. But like,
That's good.
yeah. It just wasn't. It wasn't an easy fit.
Right.
Um, and that was a problem. The time commitment was a problem. Um, Gracie's job had a commitment to doing these week long um, events essentially where she's not home. So it was the first time we'd ever experienced one of us having to travel for work for an extended period of time, that being about a week. Um, and truthfully, that is goddamn difficult
Mm.
to manage, especially based on like the timing of a lot of those was
Yeah.
really unfortunate. Um, and so we were balancing a lot. We were trying to make all of this work. Um, there wasn't a lot of space for much of anything, and it has been so difficult that like I I've fallen below the baseline, if that makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, not eating right, not getting enough exercise, not writing, like for extended periods of time this year. Um, which is just sort of to say that this has just been kind of a rotten year in many respects, um and also like I'm at the end of law school now, like truly, as like we're recording, the semester's done. um we're in the position of like I've got I've just got this last semester, and then I've got the bar, and then that's it. um and I say that like it's not a lot, but like
Well, and then you're getting married.
yeah. We've been low key planning a wedding all year. There's just been a lot going
Yeah.
on, and so there just hasn't been space for even to think of things, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that I've been experiencing most is that like maybe I did have the time to do more recording this year, but like I didn't even think of it at certain points because I was just trying to like keep my head above water, and that's true for all kinds of things. Um,
Yeah. And I think too, like I don't know, we always try to come into this with like a clear head,
mhm,
the best we
mhm.
can. And so I think even if the vibes are just a little bit off, we always reserve the right to just ask that we push.
Yeah.
Which I think we both did this year multiple
Mhm.
times,
Mhm.
just because of timing or headspace or energy. Even this morning, we pushed an hour,
Yeah. Yeah.
which thank goodness, because I was like really hacking this morning when I got up. And then like none of my audio gear was working, um, which was wild because I use this stuff all the time. And all of a sudden today, like, no, I have like a very jankly wired up setup because nothing was working this morning. I don't know what happened.
Hmm.
Um,
I
so
wonder if something updated or weird.
probably something updated or like maybe it's just not getting enough power from whatever USB hub I was trying to use. I don't know.
Hmm.
But
Strange.
yeah, it's strange. It's just I feel you, man. It's a year that it was a very full year and not necessarily full with things we planned for.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it not much this year felt like it went according to plan or like even vaguely close to plan.
Yeah.
Like the plan this summer was not to move, not initially.
Mhm.
But like just some breaking points got hit. Our landlord was being difficult. Like we just had to go. Like sometimes that's how life is.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, but like
But it is a thing.
it is a thing. It is a thing. And I think sometimes we underestimate how what's the word? I think we underestimate just how long it can take to recover.
Yeah.
And I think we can also overestimate what we are capable of.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very strange um because I was writing in like I finally picked up like my journal for the first time in a while this week. And I was writing, I'm like, why am I like this? Like why, like you and I have talked before about the idea that there are people who we know, who we care about, who what they do is they go to work and then after work they just play. Everything is it's not all bonus. Like a lot of things matter to them and whatnot, but like it's like they don't have the like second endeavor of
Yeah.
life,
Yeah. And
and
yeah, and to them, right, the only stakes are whether or not they're still having fun.
mm-hmm. And or people who have like I also know a lot of people who to their credit truly their passion is criminal justice or whatnot um and so when they come home from like their internship working at the courthouse they are like I did my thing today you know um and that is different. It's different. um
Yeah.
and I'm curious because like you especially this year got a lot of chances to do your the work that is in your chosen creative field um and did that feel any different you know
Yeah. I mean, I've always been afraid of kind of doing the thing like it's this weird double-edged sword of like I really want to be doing film and getting paid for it, but I'm
mm-hmm.
also really afraid to be doing film and getting paid for it
Yeah.
because once I'm doing film and I'm getting paid for it, you know, I think in my sort of film school, like post film school brain, it kind of felt like, oh, I'm going to have less control over things, or I won't be doing the things I want to be doing. And I think I had a lot of that fear disproven, which was good this year.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of all the corporate drama, I think what it did do, though, was instill a level of confidence in me that I haven't felt since like high school, of like, I am capable of producing work for a client and not being so attached to it that I tank the project. It felt like, oh, I can take notes and I can push back on notes and I can get it close enough to where I need it to be to achieve the thing I want to achieve.
Right.
And, you know, I think there was also an element of proving like, oh, like the way I wanted to make this happen, I did that. Like I showed everyone it was possible to make a show of this caliber with a crew of this size on a budget this small. You know, like we basically did the show for like an average executive's salary, which is like pretty by
Pretty
industry standards,
scrappy.
it's pretty cheap. So yeah, and I think just knowing that I could steward that ship and lead it to completion, I think it shifted my trajectory a little bit in terms of like what I hope for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because now my head is like, well, if I could handle that, then maybe I am more prepared to handle a bigger project like a feature or something. And so I've been doing it. That kind of led the second half of the year while I was in this like digital content purgatory to become a sort of contemplation period of what do I want to do in 2025.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still don't have the answer, but I've written down a lot of just feelings about it, but I don't know. It's a long-winded answer to say pros and cons to getting to do filmmaking in like a digital content space professionally and get paid for it. Overall, positive experience. Just wish I could be doing it more. I think that's really the thing. It's like I did enjoy just doing the work for hire stuff because unlike my personal projects, which I baby, these I sort of knew like where the bar was and I could aim for that and achieve it and execute. And that's really satisfying.
Yeah. No, I yeah. That's super fair.
Yeah. So I think it's alleviated my fear of like getting paid to do what I love. Now I'm sort of in the boat of like really having to be careful when I think about content versus film.
Uh-huh.
Because I think in this day and age they can kind of blend and you can make a film that like you can make a very like internet leaning film that perhaps loses some of its artistic and filmic qualities for the sake of trying to be more viral. And so I've had to be more intentional with the film work I'm doing or trying to do outside of my day job, because my day job stuff, it's like, you know, if I'm not thinking about like what's going to be a viral D&D thing, I'm thinking about like what's going to be a viral, like, I don't know, milk tea testing podcast video cast thing. Like how's that going to work? So it's different. Overall positive. I think the politics of it all, I think, are really exhausting, but most of that is done. And I've at least I'm at least back in the game of producing videos by the end of the year, despite how up and down or being spun around this year was at work. I'm back at least able to make some videos. So I'm happy with that.
Good.
Yeah, I'm happy with that because it gets me off my email, and using the skills that I have, you know, and I'm making
Mm-hmm.
cool things with cool people. So really can't complain other than about the politics of it all, because somehow office politics are just, I don't know. It's like the Phantom Menace.
They're
And
petty.
yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I don't got time for that. Um, I understand it's an important part of some people's lives, but for me, it's really not. I just want to be on set doing the thing, and I feel blessed that I got to be on set doing the thing for part of the year at least. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, that's it. But I don't know. How are you feeling approaching your final semester?
Like it can't end fast enough, honestly.
Okay.
Um, law school is a year too long. It
Oh,
just is.
jeez.
Like it's just a year too long because the trouble is that the base of law school, the core of it is theoretical
Mm-hmm.
in nature, not practical.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you hit your third year, you have absorbed a significant amount of theoretical practice. But the problem with that is that because it's theory, it's not specified to any actual work necessarily. The best you can say about it is that it teaches you how to absorb new law, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to go off to wherever you're going to work and you're going to have to absorb the specific law that you're working with,
Mm.
you know? And that's the case. Um and so like I took First Amendment this past semester. It was interesting. It's not very helpful. Like it isn't. The clinic stuff I'm doing is helpful because it puts something on my resume. It lets me actually practice. It lets me actually do stuff, make work with clients, get deliverables, like do the work. But the work is not like law school. Um, uh, like think about it this way. Like in film school, if all you ever did was essentially film theory classes and film history classes,
Yeah.
you like, and never much practical, it would feel very, but you have to go. It's very strange. It's just very strange. Like the expectation essentially is that like you're getting trained on how to do the job at the jobs, and that the school is this other hoop to jump through essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this third year just feels extraneous.
Mm.
um I've talked with people and we've all like had like thoughts of like, well, maybe just cut it, like just do 2 years, like whatever. Or like other people, I'm more in the camp of like, maybe like a third year where you're like strictly speaking apprenticed, you know,
Yes. I
like
think.
a
Yeah.
student, like student teaching is
Mm-hmm.
for a semester or a year,
Yeah.
like just like like it's still technically you're still in training, etc. But like pay us, like we're all adults here, like oh my god, please. um
Yeah.
and so it's definitely this feeling of like, oh my god, let's get this over with, like please, I've got shit to do, I've got like a life to live. It's also asking you, if you're not like a K through JD person where you started right after undergrad, you have put your life on hold to some degree for 3 years. It is exhausting,
Mm.
it's frustrating. um you know and for some people, like I know some people who did take a break, but they've moved across the country, or they took a break and they you know um they met somebody romantically through law school or just kind of adjacent. Like their life has been more growing, and I've definitely been more in the feeling of like, well, I stopped traveling with my fiance, I stopped
Right.
moving forward in certain areas of my life because I had them before I went to law school.
Yeah.
And like I've tried to keep them up as best as I can. Like I got engaged halfway through law
Yeah.
school, for example. Like, but that was like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like that was almost like a fight. Like I had to fight law school just to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like every trip I've taken during law school has been costly. Like costly emotionally, costly financially. Like it like outside of the engagement trip and maybe one other, I think I have regretted every trip I have taken while I've been in these 3 years.
Oh man.
Um, yeah, like just straight up, and I kind of hate that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
kind of really hate that. Um,
Damn.
yeah, it's not great. Um,
That's brutal.
yeah, it's not designed for anybody who doesn't have a significant amount of family wealth. It's not designed
Uh.
like it's designed like the person that law school works for, because I've met a couple of them. Some of them are very nice. They're kind of difficult to be around sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
For this reason, which is it's designed for a person who all of their expenses are being paid for by somebody,
Mm-hmm.
who ideally a family member of some kind already has or is deeply embedded into a law firm, such that they are just this person is just going to slot right back into the system after this is all done, um,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Um, and so for those people, it's some of this is kind of a cakewalk. Like the classes are as hard as they are and time consuming as they are and the internships and et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, they don't worry about, well, where's rent coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Where's tuition coming from?
Right.
Et cetera. And so, like, I don't say any of this to say that I'm regretting this choice, because I don't. Because I don't feel like my life was going anywhere before I did this. Like I felt like I was stalled out in certain ways. Um, and so this is better. Um,
Yeah.
it just has its own challenges, and I'm at the end when it's the most exhausting. It's the most frustrating. It's the most like I can see all the cracks in the foundation and I am the most annoyed by them, right? Like
Mm.
like I am no longer bright-eyed, I am no longer bushy-tailed. I am tired. I am over it.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm not impressed by it anymore.
Mm.
And I just want to get on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Um I am ready to go work.
Yeah.
Um and so and I'm in the horrible position of like I'm job hunting. I've been job hunting all semester. Um and unfortunately, job hunting has fucking looked like me wandering the fuck around talking to people and being like, "Hey, do you know of anybody who's working? Do you know this person? Blah blah blah." Like it's all networking. Like it's all fucking
Yeah.
networking because none of the jobs are posting right now.
Yeah.
All the jobs that are offered right now, they're all for mid-level lawyers, people with 3 to 7 years of experience, basically. Um,
Mm.
and so I'm just looking. I'm just looking
Damn.
right now, and so it's frustrating. It's annoying, but here we are. Um, and I'm trying to remind myself that like this year went fast. Um, in many ways.
Yeah.
Um, and that before I know it, I am going to be back. It is going to be December again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when it is December next year, life is going to look wildly different. I don't know exactly how it's going to look, and it's not even guaranteed to look good, you know.
Yeah.
But it is going to be very, very different,
Mm-hmm.
and that like I'm trying to leave all my doors open for
Yeah.
like things to show up in life, and um that in some ways I have been generating a lot of potential for 3 years,
Mm.
and that it hasn't even had a real opportunity to pay off yet. Um and that the first opportunity for it to pay off is going to be sometime late summer, early
Yeah.
fall next year,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know. Um
Man.
yeah.
I guess. Well, we're here for a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Um, because eventually we have to go back to the, not the slog of it all, but the slog of it all.
Mhm.
Um, What are some things you're looking forward to next year?
Well, I'm looking forward to getting married. That's the top of the
Yeah.
list, I think.
Yeah. That's exciting.
I am looking forward to being done, and not in like a oh thank God way, but just in a like getting into law school. All of this has been a near 5 year process, um, and if I'm being more generous, which because I'm kind of in a good mood today, I think I have the energy and the wherewithal to be more generous. 5 years ago, I decided. 5 years ago, when all of this is said and done, I should be clear. Um, I will have decided to move from being a person who had basically a dead end job, um, to remold my life into being a lawyer. Um, and that's kind of wild if I stop and think about it. Like going from like zero momentum to being in a position wherein like yeah, I still have more to do. I got to finish the degree, got to finish the got to pass the bar, got to do the job hunt, got to do all the things, right?
Yeah.
Um but to be in a position wherein in this career I will be in a position where I don't know if I will ever have to really be all that worried about my like I don't know I don't know how else to say this, and like it's sometimes it's weird talking about money.
Well, there's a level of security
Yeah,
that,
that's what I'm getting at, is that like that's the plan for me, right? Like
yeah.
my plan is like I is to put myself into a position of security.
Yeah.
One, I've never experienced that in my adult life. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't get me wrong, I have wonderful parents who if everything fell apart, you know,
Right. Yeah. They,
I could go home, right?
mm-hmm.
Like that was a thing I always had the option of. Um, you know, I that has not been the problem, but the problem of like not once in my adult life have I ever been in a position where I'm being like, well, I don't have to think about my bank account when I make this decision. Like
Right. Yeah. You don't have to.
being in the
Yeah.
position of like, yeah, do you want to, we can just go on a vacation, or like, yeah, we can just go out to dinner. Like that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't have to think about it. You know, the potential of that existing and going from like in this country, at least we have been fighting as people, like as workers, into thinking that like $15 an hour is like what the minimum wage should be, right? um I think it should be higher personally, but like fighting for that $15 minimum wage has been like a bit of political push for like 10 years now. Before I
Mm-hmm.
went to law school, I was making minimum wage, basically.
Yeah.
you know to pull myself up in the span of like 5 years, to not go from minimum wage to like something else, but to like leap into financial security potentially, like that, giving myself that potential in life is something worth looking forward to. It's something worth being proud of. I'm hoping to get that bandwidth. I'm really hoping to get the bandwidth to be in a position to care about a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's that's good. Um and I don't know, how it's all going to work out. I don't know how stressed I'm going to be, etc. Um but I am looking forward to all of that. And it will be nice to, and I think, and hopefully a satisfying way, close the door on this chapter, because it's been a long one. It's been a tough one. Um, and also it's the last one for in a couple regards, right? Like I'm not going back to school again. Like not in a real way. Not in a way as a person who's like, quote unquote, the right age for it, in the sense of like I think we talked about before, like I feel a little bit on the older end
Mm-hmm.
of law school. Not crazy on the older end, but just a little on the older end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I like yesterday I went out with some of my clients, and they're young. They're none of them have graduated undergrad. They're all putting together a little startup. Very cool work. It's fun to help them out. But I was like, yeah, I'm older than these like there's a gap here.
Yeah, I'm older than these kids.
Yeah, I was like to the point where I'm like, yeah, I went and hung out with some kids yesterday, like
Yeah.
college kids, but like I was like, they're just a different phase,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and I'm right at the edge of being able to be like relatable. Like I noticed that in our conversation, they were asking me for some advice. Like one of them was graduating, and they're like, "Man, I'm just so nervous about it. Like, what happened for you?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, I know where we are now." And that's also got its own gratifying feelings. I want to be really clear, but I was like, "Yeah, okay. So at the end of this semester, I'm done. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm I'm at the end of that. I'm after this next year, I'll be done with my 20s. I'll be like, I'm not going to go to school again. I'm currently starting my last Christmas break ever. Well, never say never, but like, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying goodbye to a lot of things, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to say goodbye right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. You always want to go out on a high note.
I do want to. I don't even know if I want to go out on a high note. I want to go out on the right note, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm,
I'm
hmm.
not sure what the right note is right now.
You just want to make sure it's not like a little flat or a little sharp.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Like it can
gotcha.
go out on a bad note, like, but God, I want it to be the right bad note. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Man,
yeah.
that's
It's
good.
rare that you get to see a phase of life end
Yeah,
consciously.
yeah.
Most of the time, you don't see it coming.
Right, yeah. Yeah, most of the time you only realize it ended like 5 years later.
Yeah, or like,
So,
or as it's happening, like as it's truly happening, right?
right, yeah.
Like you don't wake up. Like I'm not gonna wake up tomorrow. Like I'm not gonna suddenly wake up and be like, oh my God, I'm graduating. I'll have been looking down the barrel of it for a month, right? Like
Yeah.
that's rare. It's rare. And as you get older, there are fewer and fewer of them. When you're a kid, and like there are more of them.
Yeah.
You start driving. You graduate high school. You end middle school. Like they're shorter periods of time, or they're more clearly delineated. Um,
Yeah.
and for a lot of people, like for a lot of people who go to college is the last one, you know,
Yeah.
that's clear like that.
Yeah.
Um, and well, I think for some people, like a friend of Gracie's, he and his wife just had a kid, super cute baby. But that was like also one that he was staring down. I remember talking to him, and he was like, you know what? In 9 months, life's about to change, like
Yeah.
huge. Like, but it's stuff like that. There's just fewer and
Hmm.
fewer of them. You know, for
Yeah.
some people, like it's the next one might be fucking retirement. Like, and I'm like, well, for a lot of us, that might be 30 years away. Like,
Yeah.
shit, that's a long time before the next like time. For a lot of people, it's I hate to say it, but it's deaths, surprise deaths,
Yeah.
getting laid off. They're not good
Hmm.
usually. Wow, this got morbid.
Yeah. It's
Sorry.
okay. No, you're good.
I guess it just happens when you're talking about ending things.
Yeah.
Um,
Man.
that being said,
Yeah.
there is a lot to look forward to next year.
That's good.
But for you, what are
Mm.
you looking forward to? I know I went off for a hot second there.
No, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Well, I mean, it's 2025. I'll be turning 30 that November.
Yep.
Um, and so I had said to someone like, "Oh, like next year kind of feels like seventh grade all over again.
Why
It's
is
gonna get
that?
overshadowed because I'm gonna turn 30. And then everyone's gonna care about 30, but it's the year before turning 30, you know?
Oh,
Because
okay, I gotcha.
my birthday's at the end of the year, so
Yeah,
it's
sure, sure.
I have all year looking at turning 30, and I mean, it's not that there were a lot of things I thought about getting done by the time I was 30,
Mm-hmm.
but there were a handful of things that I was like, oh, like I thought maybe I have a shot to do, like, you know, whether it's writing a feature film or, um, you know, I don't know, buying a house or something. Like, I thought maybe I'd be closer to that. And I'm in a weird limbo where I'm not far away, but I'm not close to it. So
Yeah.
it is sort of like it feels like like a game point kind of year. Like if I figure it out, and or a match point. Like if I figure it out and I just do my best, I could quote unquote win, whatever that means.
Yeah. It's a marker year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I will say I will say this. I do think that the delineation between 20s and 30s is a little bit bullshit.
Yes.
And I think it's laced with a lot of misogyny personally.
Yes.
Like I think it stems from I feel like it starts with like a weird like the woman is now too old, which is super gross, and it's just like infected everything.
Yes.
Like if you're not made it by 30, you're just never gonna make it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like fucking ridiculous. Like it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. And by extension, right? It's this in America we really fetishize youth.
Yes.
And in a lot of industries, youth is, you know, placed above all else.
Surprised.
And you know, being 30, you know that you know it's different, right? You're supposed to have a certain thing, like according to media and opinions on podcasts, right? You're supposed to have a certain level of income, children, houses, dogs, cats,
Yeah.
and you know, Beamers, right? But for me, I think I'm mostly just, well, I mean, you know, I think it was this year or last year where I realized it had been like 15 years of making videos, you know?
Yeah.
Next year it'll be like 18 years of making videos and making films. And I think, you know, just the fact that I've been able to do it for that long is a real blessing. And you know, the things I'm looking forward to next year are hopefully making another film. You know, the like hopefully making another film, hopefully finishing some films.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, I think I've really kind of looked at next year as like, you know, maybe I should just accept the fact that I'm a little late to everything I do. I'm not the first one there ever, and maybe that's okay. Maybe I should just take 29 as a year to really prepare as best I can for whatever 30 and beyond has to offer, because maybe beyond 30 is where I'll make it, not before 30. And so, and by make it, I really mean just like feel some amount of like, oh, I'll get to make another one, You know, like I always have this fear of not getting to make another one, and I really want that fear to be minimized.
Mm-hmm.
Because knowing me, I know I'll make another one. I just would like to not be stressed out about that all the time, because that stops me from making another film, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think like that's how I'm defining success, is that. And this year was a very hard health year for me in terms of just like ups and downs, you know, with it. Sort of like stagnating in progress that I had been making the year before. And
Mm-hmm.
I think next year, you know, I really gotta prioritize that above any sort of like filmic glory or like filmic financial satisfaction, right? And I think that's been a really hard pill to swallow this end of year, that next year is really about like finishing some projects and taking care of myself
Mm-hmm.
more so than what's the film I'm going to make that's going to blow everything out of the water. Like I think the last 3 years that's what's been only occupying my mind, and it's not a very healthy mindset to have when creating
Yeah.
film. And so I'm hoping that because I'm taking some of that pressure off, maybe I'll figure something out that about my art, about the soul of my art, that I really need to know before I enter that next decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like I think outside of the stresses of work and life, right? Life is pretty okay, right? Like I think like I feel very lucky. I have a great partner. I am able to make rent and able to make art. I have cool friends. Uh, you know, like, and I get to travel occasionally.
Yeah.
So you know, it's like there's not like life is pretty good. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like knock on wood, life is pretty good, and so I shouldn't take that for granted, that that there's not a sort of constant barrage of everything all at once. But, you know, there's still the things I want to be doing throughout, right? The long game. So
Yeah.
I think I'm looking forward to just sort of like reducing the amount of pressure I have on myself before turning 30 and trying again.
Yeah. I will admit that it is kind of nice. I didn't think about how that would feel. To have next year your what feels like your last year of your 20s end with turning 30, the way you put it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I turned 30 February 26th,
Yeah.
you know, um, which is like right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like I basically get a full year of being 29 without being like, well, the next year is just it's 30 start to end, you know, like um and that does create a weird clean break. Um
Mm-hmm.
because I get to feel like I'm ending my 20s different than they started, but complete. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I
You get
definitely get to
to.
feel. Ideally, I will end my 20s a lawyer. I will have started my 20s um trying to be a like I began my 20s trying to become a like a music professor essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and ended it a lawyer,
Yeah.
right? Like I changed paths, but I did make it to the end of something, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like from like on just in my professional life, right? You know, I started my 20s working on music most heavily, and by the end of my 20s I am mostly writing with goals in mind and a plan to get there, you know, like or at least a strategy to get there. I don't think I have a plan yet. I don't have
Yeah.
bandwidth for a plan. I just have bandwidth for a strategy. Um, a strategy that's already leading to some progress, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, and there is a lot of gratification there. As you said, like a match point, essentially, you know?
Yeah.
Um, or I don't know enough about tennis to make this metaphor correctly. Um, but like, you know, like it's more like like in a series, right? Like in a series of games, you know, like 5, 7, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wherever that break point is, in 5 it's 3, in 7 it's game 4, right? Like if everything's been going one way, that's the turning point game, right? Like where like do we get to keep playing or not? You know.
Yeah.
Or I guess maybe it's in like in a set of 3 is maybe the clearest one, because no matter what, no matter how that first game turns out, the second game determines the rest.
Yeah.
It's that second game that determines, do we keep playing? Have we won? Or do we lose? Right?
Right.
I definitely am in at least in a position of feeling like I've gotten my match, my set point, my whatever, my second game is set up to basically just we're good, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I feel like I get to keep playing in a sense.
Yeah.
Whereas like I feel like a lot of people struggling with that situation they don't get to have like a weird external force tell you whether or not you did make it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like I get the benefit of getting to say like, well, I am now this licensed thing, or I am now graduated with this thing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think like people can like I feel like and this is just speaking from the outside, you got to do a show. Like you did a show, a paid show, right?
Yeah.
Like from like outside looking in, like you before 30 you did a small festival circuit, right? Like
Yeah.
you made a show professionally, right? Like you work in industry, maybe not the exact version of that you want, but you do.
Right.
You know, and like but nobody from on high is gonna rubber stamp you. You
Right.
have to find a way to rubber stamp yourself, and you could use those things, but maybe that's not for you. Like that's not the measuring stick that you feel like is appropriate, right?
Yeah.
I have gone out and found myself an external measuring stick, um,
Yeah. Getting an
and that
external
helps.
measuring stick is very helpful because creating an internal measuring stick is
Hard,
it's hard because like it's really hard to hold the measurements the same.
right,
But
right, and like even stuff like okay, like we could come up with it like, all right, you want to film in Sundance? Is that the measuring stick? Okay, well once like well okay is like okay once you're there, is it like, well, do you need it to be like a nationwide release? Like
yeah.
what happened? Like you can
Yeah, the
always
measuring stick
change the measuring stick,
exactly.
but like the external measuring sticks are set, right?
Yeah.
Like I could make some small adjustments, right? Like I could be like, I wanted to graduate top of my class and I didn't, right? Like, you know, like, but
Yeah.
you know, like it doesn't change. Like, here's the degree. There is not a plus that you can slap onto this degree. You have it or you don't. You know, like
Yeah.
you pass the bar or you don't.
Right.
Like that, and that external choice sets it in stone in a certain
Uh-huh.
way. And then like beyond that, it definitely gets more messy, right? Like then maybe the measuring stick is a paycheck, or like are you partner or whatever. But like I
Right.
also have sore news for those things, is like I think I'm about to stop caring about that sort of thing. Like I think there's going to be a point where I'm like, I am comfortable and I'm done pushing on my professional life.
Mm-hmm.
And I like weirdly that point feels way closer than I thought. Um
Mm. Like you see what you need in order to have the stability and freedom. That sort of triangle of like workload to paycheck to time outside
mhm.
of work.
Yeah.
triangle. Yeah, that's something my boss always talks about with our work is if you can find something right in the middle of that triangle, that's like the ideal job for an artist because you don't have to worry about money with your art, you don't have to worry about time with your art, and you're not completely drained from work. And so you have energy for your art.
Yeah.
It's just enough.
And
Yeah.
and for a lot of lawyers and like the next stage is like pushing for partner, and like people lose their lives to that. Like
Right.
sometimes literally, actually, like mental health in the law and like the industry of law, terrible. It's
Yeah.
horrible track record, by the by. But I think that has a lot to do with um self-worth and like what matters to people. Like the cap on how much harder like how much more I am going to be motivated by a number of dollars, and is going to cap a lot faster for me than a lot of people. It just is.
Yeah.
um because there's a level to which money can buy that stability and that time and that energy and all of that, but
Hmm.
there's a cap on that, and it stops buying you that. um and then then the question is like, well, what do you want out of life?
Hmm.
And for me, it's not a high score. A high score is not the thing.
Hmm.
um and so it's very interesting to feel like I'm much closer than I've ever been, and that might come a lot sooner than I thought. Um, because I do talk to people who are like, well, this is a 10-year process for me, right? Like I get out of law school, and for the next 10 years, I got to work up to partner. I'm like, that sounds awful, but
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
Like, cool.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
you do you, you do
Yeah.
you. I'm not here. Like some people, that's the thing. And
Yeah.
I'm not here to tell anybody what their thing is. It's just not my thing. This is a
Yeah.
pathway.
So yeah, I think next year's gonna be a next year's important for a lot of reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to make sure I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say I want you to know, as you're going into this year where it feels like you gotta make the point, um that I brag about you. Um
Really?
oh hell yeah. Oh my
Oh.
god, yeah. Like um like I told everybody about the festivals you got into. I've been bragging about, the show you got to do. I like cuz I have friends and family who have known you for a long time,
Mm.
and every once in a while, I'll be with my dad, or someone will be like, "Hey, how's Derek?" And then I'll be like, "Let me tell you." Um and so to that end, I hope that you are proud of what you've accomplished. Um and I think that there's a lot that you have gotten to do in your life so far, and it's so far from over. um
Hmm.
you know that like a lot of people dream about doing.
Yeah.
um and that's hard to know and hard to remember.
Hmm.
um
Yeah. It's easy to
because for
get
you
swept
it's
up.
your job.
Hmm.
you know um
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for that reminder.
yeah.
Well, we're a little bit over, but
Yeah, a little bit.
we kind of needed it. I think in terms of the show for
Mm-hmm.
next year, I think we haven't had a chance to really talk about that.
Nope.
I'm sure we will at some point.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're
No
not in the
promises.
what was that?
No promises
No
about
promises.
anything.
Yeah, no promises about anything, but
beyond that it will exist. It will have some form.
Yeah, beyond our
Um,
existing promises we've already made. We're not going to make any more.
Yep, 6 seasons in a movie, but what those 6 seasons in a movie look like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're both in a position where we kind of have to do what we've done the last few seasons, and that's reinvent the show every year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I think we'll probably do something next year, and definitely stay on the feed. Something eventually will happen.
There will be a season. I don't know what it will look like, but
there'll be something.
Yeah,
there'll be something, and at some point, Dane, we should talk off mic and just catch up, but also talk about the future, because I'm sure there's a lot of ideas we both have.
Yeah, and like, truth is that like a significant amount of, I think, this year has been you and me just catching up. Because I without the show, I don't know how much I would have gotten a real chance to talk to you.
Yeah.
Like, we had a couple good calls outside of the show too, which was great.
Yeah, that was something we really prioritized this year over recording.
Yeah.
Was just talking.
Yeah.
On like your long ass commutes, man.
Yep, on the long ass commutes. I remember there was one call that we had, which was the first of Gracie's
the conferences.
Her first of her conferences. And I had to drive back and forth to the house 3 times on that call.
It was funny because you'd be like, all right, I'm at destination number 2. I'll call you back in a few. And then you call me back in a few and you'd be like, all right, 20 minutes to destination number 3.
Yeah, and then I get a call and be like, hey, Derek, I'm gonna have to call you back. Gracie's calling me, and I'll be like, looks like we're going back again. And it's just like, but like that was great. I have that is a warm fuzzy memory for me now. I was annoyed during that moment. I was distinctly like, oh my god, this is the third time I've gone home and back here again.
It's like something out of a sitcom.
Yeah, it was very funny. Even in the moment, I was like, this is a little funny.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just like the fact that like Gracie and I had never done that before. Like, and so in all of this, I guess to say that like the next season will exist. But we are like, I don't think we can promise anything right now.
No, I don't think we can either. I will say this episode, there's a very real chance it comes out on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
There's also a very real chance that I get it done and it comes out the same day as the last Wednesday of the year, which is Christmas. So
incredible.
It'll be one of those two, depending on when you're listening to it. But
we'll find out.
Dude, it's been great catching up.
Hell yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you've only got one more semester, and I appreciate the votes of confidence. Man, it's gonna be a year.
It
2025.
Really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a nice round year for it, though, I will say.
Yeah.
Quarter century.
Yes, quarter century. Jeez.
Yeah, we're 1/4 of the way through this century.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think this isn't shaping up to be a good one. I'm gonna be real honest. Just from like a historical standpoint, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you look back 100 years ago, we're kind of in a similar boat.
Yeah, it's not
great.
It's not great.
But
it's not great.
Thank you everyone for listening to us this year. We really appreciate you all coming by to listen. I see the numbers. I see that we're still somehow getting like 30 people to listen to each of these episodes. So really appreciate all y'all out there listening to the show. It means the world. It's very funny and very cool.
It's very silly.
It's very silly.
I think it's a lot of family and friends who are just like, how are they doing? Like,
did I tell you that we have like 30,000 downloads on one episode? Did I tell you about that?
That must be a weird.
There was like, I think, a weird glitch, but like
bot?
it maybe, but it boosted our ratings on accident, and so we got pushed out to a lot more people.
Yeah, right.
It's super weird, but yeah, we can say, Dane, we have a podcast that has more than 30,000 downloads, kind of.
Hey, do you feel okay? This is probably a whole episode in and of itself. Do you feel like the internet's bad now? I think it's bad now.
The internet's
it's
horrible.
so bad now. It's not. I don't.
It sucks because like the internet's horrible, but so much of what I do revolves around being on the internet.
Yeah.
And so trying to decouple that, that's a 2025 thing. But
yeah. Just wondering if that's...
No, we should definitely do, at some point we should talk about bad internet.
Do you think it was ever good?
There's a lot of people that talk about the old days when sites were not aggregated by a search engine, and how like you really just had to know things, and how like that's where just communities were really formed, whereas now, because everything's fed to us, you just can't find those things as good. But I don't know. I think there was a period before they figured out how to monetize it really, where it was pretty good. Like, I think the internet when we were in high school was, I think, peak internet for me.
That's fair. I feel like that was like the beginning of the bad, though.
It was. I think sophomore year was the beginning of the bad. Once all the big website companies started combining.
Yeah.
But also like truly like social media is bad, right? Like
social media is bad, Amazon's bad, Google's bad.
Yeah. There's just a lot. I don't know. We could do a whole episode on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One day.
I agree. I agree.
Anyway, thank you all for listening. We'll see you all at some point in the future.
Farewell.
Farewell.